Karen makes fun of child with disability. She wasn't ready for the mom's counter. It's a bright, breezy Saturday at the local park, where families gather to unwind. Kids play tag and laughter fills the air. Amidst the usual scene of families, picnics, and playful pets, there's Sophie, a young girl with a radiant smile, sitting in her wheelchair, her eyes lighting up as she watches her friends play. Though her legs may not work the same as others, her spirit shines, drawing in everyone around her, especially her mother, Lily, who's seated nearby, keeping a watchful eye on her daughter. As the warm afternoon carries on, a woman named Karen enters the scene. She walks in with a sharp look, scanning the park with a calculating gaze. Her attention quickly zeroes in on Sophie, her expression shifting as she watches the girl laugh and play with her wheelchair. Karen pauses, her eyes narrowing as she takes a step closer, her lips curling into a smirk that doesn't reach her eyes. Welcome back to PlotTwister. Before we unravel today's mystery, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you're always in the loop. Sophie catches a glimpse of Karen approaching, and her smile falters slightly. Karen stops a few feet away, leaning in just enough to invade Sophie's space, and makes a comment about how lucky Sophie must be, getting to sit around all day while everyone else has to stand. Sophie's brows knit in confusion, unsure if Karen is joking or mocking her. But before she can say anything, Karen leans down, her tone shifting from fake friendliness to something sharper. Karen smirks, playfully challenging Sophie to catch her, taunting her with a grin that says she expects others to laugh along. But no one does. The families around, instead, exchange glances, discomfort spreading among them. Sophie's cheeks flush, her hands tightening on her wheelchair. Karen, seemingly oblivious to simply uncaring, rolling her eyes as if Sophie's silence is just proof of her playfulness. Sophie, trying to focus on her friends, feels the weight of Karen's presence looming over her. She feels small under Karen's gaze, her usually bright demeanor dimming. The laughter around the park softens, the atmosphere thickening as Karen's presence becomes harder to ignore. And as Karen taunts grow bolder, one thing becomes clear to everyone nearby. This woman isn't here for fun. She's here to make someone else's day worse. Karen lingers near Sophie, her presence more invasive with each passing moment. She gives a little laugh, loud enough to draw attention, and leans closer to Sophie, her tone dripping with false sweetness. She tells Sophie how lucky she must feel to have people pushing her around, hinting that maybe she's got the easy life. Sophie looks down, her fingers nervously gripping the armrests of her wheelchair, but Karen doesn't stop. Her voice is louder now, clearly meant for others to hear, as if she's trying to put up a show. Around them, parents start to notice their eyes darting over as they catch pieces of Karen's words. But Karen, seeing no one laughing along, decides to make herself even clearer. With a smirk, she calls out to Sophie, challenging her with a sing-song "Catch Me If You Can." Her voice is taunting, the tone cruel, as she takes a few exaggerated steps backward, pretending to dodge Sophie's non-existent pursuit. A few kids nearby glance over, their faces showing confusion rather than amusement. The atmosphere grows uncomfortable, and Sophie shifts in her chair, wishing she could disappear. Karen seemed disappointed, as if her attempt to be funny had fallen flat. She tilts her head, looking at Sophie with faint sympathy, but the mocking glint in her eyes is unmistakable. She mutters something about how people these days are always trying to get attention, even going so far as to suggest, under her breath, that maybe Sophie's wheelchair isn't necessary. Sophie's face flushes, her eyes wide with shock, but she stays silent, too stunned to respond. Karen takes a step closer, crossing her arms and looking down at Sophie as if she's studying her. The cruel grin on her face only widens as she accuses Sophie, saying that if she really needed the chair, she'd be able to prove it. Around them, the once cheerful park has quieted. Parents exchange tense glances, whispers beginning to spread. Yet Karen seems oblivious to the growing unease of the people around her. To her, this is just a game, one she'd determined to play out, no matter how uncomfortable it makes everyone else. Karen's face twists with a self-satisfied smirk as she steps even closer to Sophie, her gaze hardening. She crosses her arms and lets out a loud, exaggerated sigh, clearly frustrated by Sophie's silence. With a dismissive wave, she demands that Sophie prove she really needs the wheelchair, insisting that if she can't stand, maybe she shouldn't be here at all. Sophie's eyes widen, and she looks around, hoping for some support, but the people nearby are too stunned to intervene. Karen takes things further, saying that if Sophie won't prove she's really disabled, then maybe she should give up the wheelchair for someone else who actually needs it. Her words are harsh, her tone laced with accusation. Sophie's hands grip the armrest tightly, her knuckles white as she fights back tears. For a moment she opens her mouth as if to respond, but nothing comes out. She's too overwhelmed, too hurt by Karen's cruel demands. As the air grows tense and uncomfortable, parents begin to shuffle closer. Concern etched on their faces, but they hesitate, not wanting to escalate the situation. Karen, however, seems emboldened by Sophie's silence and the crowd's hesitation. She glances around, her expression smug, as if expecting applause for her bravery in confronting Sophie. But there's only silence, a heavy, uneasy silence that makes even the children pause in their games to watch, their innocent faces filled with confusion and worry. Karen's voice rises, a hint of irritation now clear in her tone as she repeats her demand, saying that if Sophie has nothing to hide, then she should stand up. She leans down, her face uncomfortably close to Sophie's, her voice dripping with mock concern as she called Sophie a faker. Sophie's face flushes deeply, her hands trembling as she looks around the park, feeling more alone than ever. Unable to take any more, Sophie calls out for her mom, her voice small but determined. The name barely escapes her lips before Lily, who had been speaking with another parent nearby, looks over, her expression quickly shifting from curiosity to alarm as she takes in the scene. The look in Lily's eyes is fierce as she locks her gaze on Karen, who seems completely unaware of the storm she's just unleashed. Lily's eyes narrow as she takes in the scene, her protective instincts kicking in immediately. She strides over to where Sophie sits, her heart pounding with a mix of anger and concern. Sophie's face is pale, her hand still gripping the sides of her wheelchair, and Lily can see the traces of tears gathering in her daughter's eyes. Without hesitation, she places a reassuring hand on Sophie's shoulder, a silent message of support and strength. Karen, still oblivious to the full impact of her actions, looks up at Lily with an almost amused expression, as if expecting validation. But Lily's face is set, her gaze fierce as she locks eyes with Karen. She doesn't raise her voice. Instead, her tone is calm, steady, but it carries a weight that catches Karen off guard. Lily simply asks Karen what she thinks she's doing, her words slicing through the tension like a knife. Karen stammers, the smugness beginning to fade as she realizes she's no longer in control of the situation. She tries to brush it off, claiming it was all a joke, just a harmless bit of fun. But Lily doesn't let her off so easily. She stands tall, her presence commanding, and calmly tells Karen that Sophie's condition isn't up for debate or mockery. The air around them feels charged, the nearby onlookers now openly watching, their expressions a mix of shock and support. As Karen fumbles for words, clearly uncomfortable under Lily's steady gaze, she tries to defend herself, insisting she was only trying to make a point, and that maybe Sophie needs to be a bit tougher. Lily's eyes flash with anger, but she remains composed. She tells Karen firmly that her daughter doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, least of all to someone who doesn't understand the challenges she faces every day. Karen begins to realize she's lost any support she might have imagined that she had. The parents around now stand with their arms crossed, looking at her with disapproval, and a few even murmur in agreement with Lily. Karen shifts uncomfortably, her confidence shrinking with each passing second as Lily's words sink in. Sophie, watching her mother stand up for her so fiercely, feels a surge of relief. Her mother's presence, a shield against the cruelty she's endured. The tension builds and it's clear to everyone that Karen's behavior is no longer tolerated. Lily pauses, taking a deep breath, her gaze steady on Karen as she pulls out her phone. She begins to speak, her voice calm, but with a quiet intensity, describing exactly what just happened in the park. Her phone is pointed at Karen, who now looks confused, and then as realization sets in, visibly uncomfortable. Lily has gone live on Facebook, and as the video starts streaming, people from their community and beyond begin to tune in, watching the scene unfold in real time. Karen's face pales as Lily recounts her actions, word for word. Lily explains how this stranger approaches her young daughter, mocked her disability, and demanded she give up her wheelchair, claiming she didn't really need it. The shock in Lily's voice carries through the stream, drawing in even more viewers. Comments start popping up on the screen, and they're not in Karen's favor. The crowd around them grows as more people in the park become aware of what's happening, standing by as silent witnesses, their faces reflecting shared disapproval and disgust. Karen, realizing she's being publicly called out, tries to cover her face and stammers that it was all a misunderstanding. Just a misplaced joke. But Lily doesn't waver. She keeps her focus, calmly telling the viewers that bullying, especially of vulnerable children, is never a joke. She speaks about the importance of empathy, her words resonating with the crowd, both online and in the park. Karen, no longer able to meet Lily's gaze, starts to back away, her confidence thoroughly shattered as comments condemning her actions flood the screen. As Lily's live video continues, friends and even strangers share it widely, and within minutes it reaches hundreds, then thousands of people. Karen looks around, her face flushed with embarrassment, fully aware that her actions will now be seen by countless others. She stammers a few last words, but no one is listening. Her words are drowned out by the support pouring in for Lily and Sophie, the community rallying around them in solidarity. Lily ends the stream with a final message about standing up against cruelty and protecting those who can't always protect themselves. She puts her phone away, giving Sophie a reassuring smile. Sophie, feeling a warmth that goes beyond her mother's touch, beams back at her. The park returns to its usual calm, but the impact of that moment lingers. Karen leaves, her head down, facing the consequences of her actions, while Lily and Sophie are surrounded by a newfound sense of support and solidarity. What are your thoughts on the twist we uncovered today? Comment your ideas below. Make sure to like and subscribe for a daily dose of drama and mystery. See you later with another twist.